KEVOLE, Soundcloud.com, KEVOLE, YouTube, Kevin Olenick. You can also follow me on Instagram at KEVOLE. You can like, agree, or disagree with the podcast on Facebook as well. And soon we're going to be using Instagram TV and as well as an option. So welcome back. Of course, we're the controversial podcast that pushes you to think differently, connects you with your community. And today is a bit of a touchy topic, but if I'm going to use the tagline that a controversial podcast pushes you to think differently and connects you with your community, if I'm actually going to use that line, then we have to go here a little bit. So thanks for checking this out. And our topic today is around the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and some are in part, depending on your perspective, which is what we're going to get into here, part of the Me Too movement. And let's go back to specifically the 2000. This is I'm going to be quoting from an article in the National Post here. So Valerie Bourne, at the time the publisher of the Creston Valley Advance, a small community newspaper in British Columbia's southern interior, received a visit in her office from one of the newsroom's two reporters. The reporter, a woman in her early 20s, whom Bourne later described as having an awesome work ethic and a heart of gold, told her publisher about an unsettling encounter she said she'd had with Justin Trudeau. Not yet involved in politics, the then 28-year-old Trudeau had come to Creston to attend a music festival, raising funds to build a backcountry lodge in honor of his late brother. Bourne doesn't recall the exact words the reporter used to describe the incident. However, in its edition of the August 14, 2000, the Advance published an unsigned editorial that accused Trudeau of groping the reporter. A Twitter storm was erupted when Warren Kinsella actually tweeted the actual column, and I'll show you. You can see that on his Twitter there as well. I'll post that there for you to see. Let's get back here. The purporter has also seemed to have declined media attention, and the Post and other media outlets, as of this recording anyway, has declined to name her. But if you know on Warren Kinsella's Twitter account, the report was published back on her, and that was published back on June the 6th. Trudeau, who has been outspoken about sexual harassment, he said even in an interview yesterday on CNN, as this story is now getting some international attention, that he doesn't recall any negative interactions that day at all. And he does, according to reports, according to articles, he does remember that day specifically, but he doesn't recall any negative interactions that day at all. And as a matter of fact, it would seem from Trudeau's perspective anyway, that he has been very, very careful, and his quote, all his life to be thoughtful, to be respectful of people's space and people's headspace as well. Now, I want to stop here and just say, to be clear, I haven't heard or have read anything that would suggest myself that Trudeau has had a habit of being out of line consistently. It doesn't seem to be the consistent of that behavior of him. From what I watch and whether or not I agree with his stance or disagree with him, I certainly at times have done both. I think the intent of Justin Trudeau in his dealings with people is to be respectful. I've never met him, so I don't know him. I've never had a personal encounter with him, but I'm also not the specific reporter in this situation either. So bring that into that. Now, some have been quite upset about this. Kinsella had wrote in an article that there are some things that Trudeau could do if he was a client. I'll post that below as well. Others aren't seeing this the same way. Some have argued this was 18 years ago. The lady isn't bringing this up. She doesn't want to come forward. Why are we bringing this up now? Why is this an issue now? But to counter that, an actor like Kevin Spacey's career ended over an incident about 30 years ago. Some have argued about the idea of age, but Justin Trudeau was 28 at the time. Not an immature age, not old, not young, but not certainly an immature age. Others have argued that it's the Conservatives or the Trudeau opponents trying to gain a political advantage. However, what about Kent Hare? He's back in caucus. There didn't seem to be a huge amount of consequences for his allegations and what happened. So there's two ways to look at that. And this is leading to some more questions that I want to ask. And I understand that perhaps here is where I'm going to push a little bit. But it is out there. I don't think I'm the first person that's going to be asking these questions. I know I'm not the first person that's going to be asking these questions. And it's a point of debate from some. I've heard this from men. I've also heard this from women too. And it's the fact that some of the people feel that the names in this Me Too movement haven't been necessarily consistent. And I'll give some examples just on this. Headley's music is off the air. If you remember Jacob from Headley, we interviewed Katie Summers about the podcast about her story. That story was out there. She wasn't the only one. There was a number of allegations that went forward about Headley. And of course, I think that we all agree and understand the decision of having Headley's music off the air. But Ryan Seacrest was also accused of sexual misconduct and is still on our airwaves and is still on TV. What about Kobe Bryant, who had a sexual assault case back in 2003, and yet at the 2018 Oscars, he wasn't accepting an award? What about two future NFL Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Ben Roethlisberger and Peyton Manning, have sexual assault cases as part of their past? And yet they've been revered and respected and will be considered some of the greatest people to have ever played this game and are loved and have fans. Comedians like Aziz Ansari had to take a step back because of a controversial incident that was blogged about whether you thought that this was appropriate or not. There was a huge controversy about that, and Ansari had to take a step back because of that. There was George Takei at one point was named for something. And there's more. And the point that has to come across here is there doesn't seem to be a line. I don't even know how to word this. Some feel that depending on which political side that you are on, whether that be is on the left, and I'm just sharing a perception. I'm not saying that this is right. I'm not saying that you have to agree with what I'm saying. I'm just sharing this perception that some feels it depends on which political side that you are on, whether it be the left or on the right. Some get defended and some get challenged, depending on where. But there's others that you can't say that would say that you need a little bit more nuance in that. Now, you can't always look at everything exactly the same way in some ways. And there's some other thought about this. And it's not, you can't make this consistent necessarily. I don't even know if that's the right word to use, consistent. And I won't speak for every human on the internet. To be fair, I've wondered that too myself, are some people taking the side of their political ally. But I've also, to be fair, want to say that I think that there have been more people taking their partisan hat off, pardon the pun as I'm wearing a hat if you're on Facebook Live, and taking this issue very seriously no matter who it is. If it is a person on their side and it's a person or a person not. Now, I just want to ask at this point what you think. So let's go back to Trudeau here in a moment. Do you think that this is an accusation that is something that we need to take seriously? Are you taking this seriously? What are your thoughts on that? What would you like to see about this going forward? How would you, and again, I'll post Kinsella's article in the comments below, but would you agree with what Warren Kinsella says? Some of the things he said there, I'll post that. What would you advise there? And let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go here. Do you think that there are some inconsistencies in the Me Too movement? Is that a perception that you notice, or is it something that you don't really see and you think that everything is quite different, or you have some thoughts on that? Let's dig on that a little bit. I'm not saying that that perception is necessarily right. I'm hearing it, and I think it's an important question. We haven't, Me Too has been kind of, the Me Too conversation has been sort of a little bit quiet the last little bit. Not as strong as it was. And we've done some Me Too podcasts. We did a all-female one, and we did an all-male one back in the fall, and there were other conversations back in the fall as well. But maybe it's time to talk a little bit more about that. So place your comments below. You can also, of course, follow me on Twitter at KEVOLE. And again, as I said, SoundCloud, Spreaker, KEVOLE, Instagram, KEVOLE, Podbean, KEVOLE. I forgot about that one as well. But I have that as well. And normally we do a poll, but I don't feel that this is something that we could poll necessarily. I just want to hear our words and see what you think. And of course, as always, please be respectful to everybody as we're doing this. And we do thank you very much for taking the time to listen and participate in whatever way that you do. And maybe if there's something that you can take away and have your own private conversation about as well. I don't mind, but I would love to hear from you as well. Tomorrow, just so you know, we will be doing a podcast. We're interviewing an author by the name of Adele Desjardins-Lapine. She just wrote a book called What the Self-Love Got to Do with It. So we'll hear from her tomorrow. Otherwise, we thank you again. Thanks for taking the time to watch or listen on the podcast. We are going to talk to you soon. Bye for now.